Before we get started, there's one thing that we could agree on today, and it's that you don't actually believe Carmelo Anthony should be a Hall of Famer, right?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, I'm talking to you.
I don't know what you're talking about.
All right.
Because Carmelo Anthony is a Hall of Famer.
You know who is a Hall of Famer? Steve Nash. So enough with the basketball talk. Enough with the basketball talk. You know, I've been wanting to sit down with you to talk about this because, you know, we're both fathers. You're a father to my godson, even though you sometimes try to deny it.
Yeah, no, that's not the case anymore. You're not the godfather.
Oh, that card. Oh, okay, so Wilbur is the only godfather.
We revoked that.
So Wilbur is the only godfather.
He's losing the
almost
privilege.
losing his card too. Okay, I see.
To that too.
The point is, you are the father of my godson.
Okay,
there you go. Who's 7 years old, about to turn 8.
Yeah.
In October. Mm-hmm. And my daughter is 7.5 months. She's going on already. 8 months. She's crazy, growing a little too fast for me. I don't appreciate it.
Next thing you know, she's in high school.
Now you're jumping fast.
Bro,
I don't want you to jump that far away. But, you know, we're both fathers. And I think that in the times that we're living in right now, I think we are in a position where things seem a bit unclear. And, you know, it's a bit scary. It's sort of like a movie where we don't necessarily, like, we're in the movie. We don't know what the ending looks like. And I think because now we're not just worried about our lives, we're worried about the lives of our partners, the lives of our children. We right now are trying to figure things out and how we're going to raise our kids. And this conversation that I wanted to have with you, I titled it "Fatherhood in the Midst of Gun Violence and Shifting Agendas," especially for us who live in the Bronx, the dirty Bronx.
Yeah, that's not gonna be the case for me.
Yeah, I'm trying to change that, but
it's changing pretty soon.
I do feel like our roles as fathers, more than ever right now, is becoming more and more important. The more we have like this social media world that we're living in, where it's very easy for kids to be, you know, influenced by what's out there on social media, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, whatever they're watching. And I think for me right now, and I do want to get your perspective because we're both Christian.
Yeah.
I met you at church.
Yeah.
And I do want to get your perspective on these topics that I'm about to fling at you right now. And the first one is trying to understand fatherhood as a Christian. And I think you could talk a little bit about that, you know, talking about the perspective of a father when we're looking at it from a biblical perspective. Well, what can you say are the role what's the role that we have to play as a father, as a person who's a Christian and is fathering a child? What do you think is the role that we play here?
You know, first, congratulations on becoming a father.
Oh, thank you.
That's an amazing feeling. Becoming a father too, like for me, it's just been probably the greatest gift besides salvation in my life. It's just an amazing thing.
That changed you.
Yeah, it changes you. It's just every day you try to be a better person because you know you have someone looking up to you. And you just need to be there regardless of what's going on around you. You just have to be, you know, strong. No matter what happens in your life, you just got to keep moving. So, you know, it's an amazing thing to be a father, but times are hard right now. It's scary, like you said. You know, a lot of things are going 100 miles an hour out there. What we see on TV, what we see on social media, what, you know, it's just, it's hard to be a father, I think. More difficult than it was maybe a generation before ours. Like our parents.
Yeah.
You know, it was a complete different upbringing for us. I wouldn't say that our parents didn't have to go through the things that we have to go through nowadays. Because kids just could go through their phone and learn a bunch of things on their phones and just go and watch a YouTube video and just get their mind, you know, on the wrong route.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, don't hang out with this kind of friends. Don't hang out with, this kind of people. Now it's all the information, all the wrong people are maybe on the video games, on social media. So
social media is a big one.
it's hard.
Yeah. So then how do you as a someone who's, I consider a believer who, is a Christian, how do you then, because that there is like this like head-to-head battle between what we believe in and what the world, which we consider people who don't believe in Jesus, who don't live a life of a Christian. How do you, like, when it comes to your son, like, how do you try to, discipline your child and teach him, what you believe in compared to what the world is teaching him?
So I've read something, and I have it actually right here on my phone. And I've been using this. So for a Christian, in our case, it's like believers, Christian fathers, our job is to be a provider, to be a protector, a leader, a teacher, a helper, encourage, and to be a friend. So, it's just like basically be the image and be like Jesus, what he is to us.
Yeah.
But put all of that together and try to be, the best dad with all those, qualities to, raise your child. So I try to be a friend first. You can't try to discipline your kid like our parents discipline us
back in the 90s and early 2000s.
It's just not the same. I mean, if you want to, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's you're gonna push your kid away. So like with my son, what I do is like I have open conversations. He's 7 years old, but yet I have conversations with him like he's an adult. Like I tell him things just straight how it's supposed to be, because I don't want him to go to the world and learn things out there that he can be like, oh well, dad is not telling me, is not talking to me, or he's too afraid to talk to me about those things. Because listen, he's gonna find those things regardless. Again, you got to be careful what they watch. On YouTube or on their iPads, even at a young age. Even your daughter, 7 months old, and you put certain videos on YouTube, you have to be very careful, because there are certain people out there that are just out there just to do harm, to do bad things. And it's not necessarily a particular agenda. It could be just bad words and a negative message. It doesn't have to be something that that
could be, however, go under the word agenda when you think about it this way. Like, that we could be living through times where it's okay for a kid to talk back to his parents. Like, we've seen that, happen often now, where like in our days, if you know this, we're from Dominican Republic, so we know if we even lifted our hands, like even joking around to our parents, my mother would beat the crap out of me.
That's why you have a big head.
She would beat the life out of me if I ever did anything that seemed a bit disrespectful.
No, true.
You know what I mean? So it's like we know that already. But I love what you're talking about, which is, and I know you personally, like, and I know the kind of father that you are, that you've always been that first guide for your son, and that open conversation that you're having with your son, I think is very important, because that becomes part of the first guide for your kid.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things that I feel like us parents, us fathers, should really hone in on is, trying to have that open conversation with your child, being that first example, leading by example, which you mentioned.
Absolutely.
And especially again, like, no one has to believe in what I believe in. That everyone has the decision to believe in whatever they want to believe in. Me as a Christian, like, I would love to instruct my daughter in that way, present to her what was presented to me. Like, hey, this is the life that your father's living. This is the life that I want you to
not to call you up, but on that same aspect, you also have to tell them what else is out there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's where I go and talk to my son. And
so tell me a little bit about that, because you've told me stories about how these are conversations again that my parents never had with me, but you told me you had with your sons. What are things that you talked about with your son that you didn't necessarily want to teach him, but you knew he needed to know?
Yes, he needs to know. Because let's go back to how our parents brought us. They didn't want to. They kind of wanted to hide certain information to us.
Yeah.
And it's like, and they would say that's el cuco, or this is bad for you, or this is, if you hang out with this people, you are a criminal. Like, but tell me why.
Yeah.
Tell me the reason why this is bad. Like, just explain to me. So what I do with my son is I tell him both sides. And I honestly tell him, at the end of the day, when you become an adult, it's going to be your own decision.
Yeah.
I'm not going to force you to do something that you don't want to do. I tell him what I believe. I tell him my opinion, my belief.
Absolutely.
And this is how I do my life. This is how I do it. And this is how I believe God wants us to do. And it's up to you when you become an adult to choose that. But there's people out there, they have different opinions, and you have to respect those opinions. But I don't want him to feel that I'm forcing him to be something that I am, because the minute you start doing that, then the minute your child is going to resent that. And it's going to be like, well, I'm either doing this because my dad told me to, or I don't want to do this because my father told me to.
Exactly.
So either way is not a good way. So you have to just teach your children, in my opinion, have a conversation with them. Just say, hey, listen, you are going to be watching certain cartoons, or, I try to monitor everything he watches.
Yeah.
But again, it's impossible. It's impossible to filter everything out there. So you have to prepare their mind and tell them, listen, some people have an opinion, and it's okay to feel that way. It's their choice. But, my belief is X, Y, and Z.
I actually love that, because again, you mentioned something about like not forcing. That's why I wanted to talk about the shifting agendas, because again, there are things that are being taught to our kids that we know, we can be honest, we don't necessarily want anybody else to teach them about that, because we feel like that is the responsibility of the parents, of the father and the mother, to teach them that. You know what I mean? And that's where I wanted to sort of like go to, like, taking that away from the hands of the government, of the school system. That's not their responsibility. That's our responsibility.
Exactly.
And that's
your responsibility as a father.
And that's why I love your story. I love, and I've talked to you for years about this stuff. I've talked to my wife about you many times, about the example of a father that you are, because I've seen that. I've seen you having these extremely difficult conversations
with a 7-year-old.
With the 7-year-old. That sounds like he sounds like he's 16.
Yes, because you have to kind of like, it's like Michael Jackson when he was a kid.
Yeah.
His dad pushed him so much to be the superstar that he was. Now, the methods that his dad used maybe were not probably the best one. But what I'm saying is, like, you are what you practice. You become perfect at it. And I think the more you have that conversation with your child, the better that he is going to be understanding where you're coming from. And again, if you have that open conversation, if you have that every single day, and tell them, listen, this is how the world is. This is what you're going to see. This is what you are going to be told. This is every single avenue that's out there, because there's a lot.
Yeah.
So you can't just try to tell them, only Jesus is the way and that's it. No, you have to
present every angle.
You have to present and put all the cards on the table.
That's true.
And
I
pray
agree with you 100%.
Hope,
yeah.
Actually, too, that he's going to
choose that way. Yeah.
Exactly. But you can't hide the truth that is out there already.
Now, I sort of want to shift to something, because again, we both live in the Bronx. We've lived here for a really long time. Your son has been raised here in the Bronx. And I think in the days that we're living in now, with all the gun violence and all the danger outside, this is not what it was before COVID time. You remember before COVID, we used to take the train to go to downtown, whatever, go out to different places, and we would be fine. When was the last time you got on the train?
Maybe like
5 years ago. If I ask Wilbur the same, Wilbur, I think he takes the train more often.
Who's that?
Wow. I don't take the train, bro. Like, I don't get on trains, but it's again because of everything that's happened since COVID. Now we have all this violence that I feel is is much worse than it's ever been before, because now it feels like everyone has access to guns now. Like, everyone has access to a weapon and anyone can get hurt. So for you as a father, like, I'm interested in hearing your, like, how do you feel about the impact that gun violence has right now, like in our borough where we live at, as someone who's a father? Like, how do you feel about that? And how do you address that? Like, how do you deal with that?
It's hard. Like we were saying earlier, it's just scary just to even think about it. My son goes to school in the Heights, but he lives in the Bronx. We live in the Bronx. So just that commute, the Heights is not any better right now.
Yeah.
So, man, it's just scary. Like, I stopped to buy smoothies after school every day when I pick him up. The same spot that we get him, the smoothies, there's always a shooting.
Where do you usually go for that?
In 207.
Oh, God.
In 207. So it's just like, do I really want a smoothie or do I want my life?
Like, you want your life, bro. You want your life.
So it's like you can't even stop to buy food, to buy a pastelito. Like, it's just crazy, man. You just want to go from school to your house, like, run, grab your kid, just look to the side. It's just like, you can't even say hi to the neighbor because you don't know if the neighbor is feeling some type of way. That, man, it's just crazy.
Have you had conversations about this with your son?
With Silas, you don't want to bring that fear. That's one thing you can't. So that's where like I said, I read to you earlier, you want to be a provider, but also want to be a protector.
Yeah.
So that is where the Superman cape comes in, and you need to show and be that front that everything is going to be okay. But at the same time, you have to be, tell them, listen, don't get close to anyone. Be careful with certain friends, because now it's also little kids. You don't know what they're learning from their homes. You don't know what they bring into school.
Has that done to you? Like, has it done anything to you emotionally or psychologically? Like, thinking about all the gun violence here. Like, what has that done to you since you've become a father living in the Bronx?
I'm a very optimistic and positive person, so I try not to get any
like negative thoughts or anything like that.
You try not to get that.
It's hard though,
but it's hard.
Think? Yeah, like, it's hard.
There's moments that you do feel like, man, like when you read the news, when you read like there's a shooting at a school.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like,
man,
that's
you just like, all right, homeschooling. Like, all right, my kid is not going to school anymore. All right, let's figure something out. So you what can I say? It's just hard, but you try to move forward. You try to move on with life. Be positive. Obviously, you have the conversation like I have with Silas. I tell them just like I have conversations with other things. I tell him about being careful with other kids, how to just always be on the lookout on the playground. You have to teach your child and prepare them for everything.
I've been on freak out mode, bro, since Layla's been born. Layla's my daughter, and Yuli can attest to this, bro. The car can be parked a block away. I get the car.
Yeah.
I get in front of the building and I wait right in front of the building with them until they get in the car first and they drive off. That's when I go upstairs. Nighttime, whatever time it is that we are in the day.
Yeah.
That is the routine. I don't allow my wife to walk a yard.
And it's not that you're paranoid, and it's not that you don't trust in God to protect.
Oh no, yeah, no,
because
no.
it's like, oh, you can't. If you're a man of God, you're a man of faith, you can't be walking in fear. No, it's not walking in fear. It's that we live in a reality.
That's very naive. It's very naive to think that. No, I know
you're
people
gonna hear that.
I know people think that way. You're gonna hear that. I call it how it is. They're naive.
You're gonna have people saying like, "Oh, men of God should not walk in fear because the God is protecting," which is true.
Yeah.
Again, like I'm a positive person, and I believe that God is covering me and protecting my family from no harm. But listen, at the same time, you got to do what you got to do. You are called to be a protector of your family.
No, exactly. Have you found yourself like having like paranoid moments where you're like?
Thankfully not. Thankfully, I think knock on wood, as they say. I haven't had any moments in which
that's actual wood, by the way.
All right, yeah,
look at that. It's on cue. But I got you, bro. I got you.
Right. But nah, man.
You haven't had
any moments. So far, thankfully, that I had to feel some type of way, like extra scared or afraid. But you just got to keep praying.
That is something I can be honest with you. That is something that I need to pray more about.
Yeah.
And again, it's not like the lack of faith in God, his ability to protect my family, to keep us out of harm's way. It's more, man, like we live in, like we say, like in the trenches, bro, like that.
Yeah, but and it's on top of that we live in the trenches. We are living in dark days.
Exactly.
There's our
there be shootouts right in front of kids, bro.
They are playing Call of Duty out there, like live.
Like that's scary, bro. Like that's
they think it's a video game because it's also the 16, 17, 18-year-olds. They coming out there. They don't care who you are. They're just like, it's just bad right now. But again, I think for us as fathers now in this generation in 2023. It's all about, protecting your family. You had to be proactive. You had to find a different way every single day.
I love that. That's true. That's true.
It's just a lot of things coming your way, and you have to adjust every day. So, like, we don't know what is going to happen next year. We had a whole pandemic 3 years ago.
Yeah,
that came out of nowhere.
True.
Like, you wasn't a father at the time, but for me as a dad, it was staying home. School was different. It's just it's a lot.
It was a lot to deal with.
It's a lot to deal with.
Yeah.
I think, again, different from generations in the past, where probably the mom would stay more at home, dad would go to work. Now it's just like us as fathers, we have to, be extra caring to our kid.
Yeah.
Extra protective to our kid. Be your friend instead of only a disciplinary father. Because before, that was what the dad was. Oh, listen, I'm gonna talk to your dad.
Yeah.
And you'd be like afraid. It was like, ooh, if mom talks to my dad, it's over.
Yeah.
Now
for me, it was my mom.
Yeah.
My mother.
Yeah,
so, for me, it was my mom.
She doesn't play. But yeah, in my case, it was my dad. Like, my dad would be like, shoot, if my dad would find out that I didn't do my homework, man, it would be like, pasame la escoba. That man it would hit me with a whole broom, like, boom. Shout out to my dad. But nowadays, you have to be more of a friend, I believe, and at the same time, try to discipline your kids, but with love.
So talking about that, just essentially talking about like the strategies that we use to like raise our kids. Like, what are some of the strategies, some of the things that you do as a father to instill faith and your Christian values into your son Silas? Like, what are some of the things that you've done?
Surround him with love, with friends like you guys.
Yeah. Well, we're not his friends, we're his godparents, but go ahead.
You get the point. For him to see that environment, for him to see how we love each other, how we are with each other. When he sees that the difference.
Actually
you
do
don't
see
have
that.
to. You don't have to even preach to your child. It's like only Jesus is the way. He is going to see how you are with others.
Yeah.
You know, when you do what you're supposed to do as a Christian, your child will see those things. It's like, wow, my father's different than my friend's dad.
Yeah.
Like he's different. My dad's friends are different. And when he sees that difference, then he is going to want to be that.
And I like that. You know why? Because I do feel that, especially when you think about certain people will tell you like, oh, you have to keep your son away or whatever. No, what you've done is that you've brought him in.
Yeah.
You brought him in and you want to surround him with the examples that you would want him to follow. And I think that's amazing it's an amazing way to lead your child rather than again leaving it up to somebody else. Like, how about you watch this show? It'll teach you this. No. Like, this is something I'm going to teach you. This is something I'm going to lead you. And I love that with like what you've done.
No, you can't shelter your kid and overprotect your child in fear that they are going to probably go that route that you are afraid that they're going to go.
Yeah.
Because eventually they are going to find those things out. Now, like we said earlier, they are going to find those things sooner than later. And those questions are going to come up. So it's all about, trying to implement those things at an early age and have those conversations. And for me, it's just all leading by example.
All right. So knowing like some of the conversations that, you've talked about that you've had with your son, Silas, has he ever, like, again, because we know, we're Christians and our beliefs are different from what they're teaching at school. Has he ever like come home to you and talk to you about a time when they were teaching something that went against the things that you've talked to him about? Has he ever done that?
Actually, yeah. I'm glad that you asked that question. So let me start by saying that one of my first things that I gave my son when he started learning how to read was his Bible. And we would read stories every night, read it together. So we have the stories about Adam and Eve, and where man comes from and when the woman comes from and what a family is. So, he already knows. That's what he knows. So when they start, perhaps not necessarily in school, it hasn't happened, thankfully, at his school. But when you see certain cartoons that he loves, introducing same-sex couples, like a dad and a mom and a mom, and, questions do come up.
Yeah.
And he, he asked me at one point, there's a particular cartoon, not going to name the cartoon, but there was two dads, and he asked me, he was like, okay, what is this? Literally, like, in a way that he was just confused. And he wanted just to kind of like understand, like, it was just, I'm going to tell you this way, exactly how it was. He's like, hey, Dad, why is there a dad and a dad or two dads in this cartoon when it's supposed to be a mom and a dad? That's how it was.
And how did you respond to that?
Man, I kind of froze.
You got stuck there.
Yes, you had to be like, and this was not, recent. It was like probably a year ago, a year and a half. And at the time, that was not a conversation that I already had with him. So I was just like,
but that's hard, bro.
it is.
That's hard because, again, I personally feel, especially with my daughter now, like obviously she's 7 months old, so I haven't had that conversation with her yet, and it's not time for me to have that conversation because I'm trying to stand from a point where I'm not necessarily like trying to offend anybody or trying to hurt anybody's feelings.
Yeah, because you don't want to. Yeah.
That may naturally happen because, again, where I stand on it compared to where somebody who doesn't believe in the biblical principles where they stand on it. That's why I feel like it is a very hard conversation to have. And I like, again, continue with that story because I do want to hear.
So like at the moment, I'll be honest, I didn't have an answer on how to approach his question. So what I did is like, hey, we could talk about it later. Because sometimes you have to be able to ask God that wisdom so you could use, and say the right thing and come in the way that, he could understand, as opposed to just lie to him. Or just give it to him in a way that is just like, oh, this is wrong. So sometimes what I do is if I don't have the answer right on the spot, I'll tell him, we could talk about it later. Like I'll explain to you later, and I'll take a minute. I'll try to analyze and find the best way to, talk to him about it. So I didn't talk to him I think right away. But another question came up.
And what was that?
What is Pride? And what is Pride Month? Literally, this is around the same time, probably a month or 2 months later after the cartoon question that I kind of,
so everything just happened back to back.
Yeah, but I didn't give him an answer. I was like, all right, I'll talk to you about it later. And then he asked me about Pride. So that's when I was like, all right, man, it's asking serious questions. Let's talk to him like an adult. So that's when I was like, all right, you remember a story about Adam and Eve and how, I believe that a man should be with a wife and a woman should be with their husband, a man and a woman. That's my belief. That's what my Bible tells me. That's what I believe in God. And, the that's our footprint. Yeah. But some people don't believe that. Yeah. Some people out there believe that a man could be with a man. Yeah. And a woman can be with a woman and other stuff. Yeah. And, that's their opinion. Yeah. And if that's what they believe, it's up to them.
But that stemmed from what he saw in the cartoon, or was it something that, again, because you can't really miss it when you go outside, you see different symbols and stuff like that. It wasn't something that happened at school. It was something that he saw.
It's exactly, and that's what I'm trying to say, that it's not only the school.
Oh, yeah.
It's everywhere. Yeah. So it's just, and the cartoon is not a cartoon that is all about, that.
They just put it in there.
It was just one episode or one couple that is just a dad and a dad. And again, you try to filter as much as you want, and and try to not let your kids watch certain things, but it's just like it's everywhere. So he asked me like, hey, what is this? What is Pride? So you had to have a conversation that some people believe in, same sex relationship, and that is not what God told me that is right. That's not what I believe. And that I believe it's just, it should be a man with their woman.
I'm afraid, and I'm gonna say this, is more like a fear of like the types of actions that I may take in terms of like what I like. How am I gonna address this like with my daughter when she gets that age? And I don't know if I'll be dealing with something like that in school, where again, like those are the types of things. And I had this conversation with Wilbur in my chat with him, where we talked about the things that I feel a school should teach a kid, and the things that I feel that it's up to us, the parents. And this is one of those areas where I feel like that's my job to do. And what I'm afraid of is getting to the point where my child comes home and says, listen, Dad, they spoke to me about this and this. Like, I feel like,
and to that
initial reaction you had feeling stuck, I feel like I'm gonna have the same thing too.
Yeah, no, but to that, what I could say is that you got to be ready that that's probably more is gonna happen more than likely. It's probably gonna happen. There's gonna come the day that's gonna be the case, that in sexual education in class, they are going to teach different genders. Yeah. And it's okay for the world to do that. At the end of the day, there's nothing wrong that the world is doing what they want to do. And I'm not saying that is right. I'm not saying that is wrong. Everyone is entitled to their opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
God is not here to judge anyone. He set some guidelines for us to follow, but he's not forcing anyone to follow those guidelines.
You have to choose to do that.
And as Christians, we can tell, hey, don't do that because God didn't force anyone. He gives you the free will to do what he wants. Now, you had to protect your family.
Yeah.
And obviously you don't want your family to be taught certain things, but it's like trying to cover the eyes and ears of your kids to not be in the world. Like, how are you going to stop your kids from listening when they walk down the street certain music that say bad words?
Yeah.
Just because they listen to those things out there in the street doesn't mean that they are going to be saying bad words at home. You set some rules in your house, right?
Yeah.
So they can't come to your house and curse you out just because they hear it in a rap song.
Yeah, true.
You understand? So we can't be, the school can't do that. Eventually, I'm the type of person that I believe that is going to happen years down, but we had to get ready for it. If you set your house the right way and you talk to your kids, to your children, and you introduce the word of God and that trust and that friendship, I think you have nothing to fear.
Yeah, I don't know. Because for me, I hate the fact, and I try not to use that word as often, unless I'm describing my relationship with you and Wilbur. But I hate the fact that they can dictate the things that they, by they, I mean society, again, not focusing on school. Society can dictate what they can teach to our kids. But the minute we stand up for, again, what's ours, which is our kids, there's a problem. Like, oh my God, how dare you say that? Like, no, you shouldn't think that way. No, I'm sorry, Mama. I'm sorry, Papa. This is my child.
Yeah.
And I don't want my child to learn these things. I don't, and what I mean by learn, like, I don't want you to be the one to teach my kids these things. That is not your role. That is my child.
The line to that is we could put so many things into that point, because we could go in what they teaching in terms of history. Yeah. What are they learning? Christopher Columbus
discovered America.
Exactly. And
there were people already here in America.
So there's so many things. It's like Black history is in itself, and what everything is. So there's so many things that are hidden, so many things that are not true. Yeah. That we read from history books, even us growing up. So it's just like, it's always been like that. And sometimes it's unfair that some certain groups dictate and decide what is for us to learn, to see, to hear. But again, it goes back. We have the tools. You ask me as a Christian father, what are the tools that you use? The tools are there already for us, man. The tools is our guidebook, our Bible, and use that knowledge that God has given us. Use that wisdom, And at the end of the day, it's still going to be your daughter's decision. Yeah. It's still going to be Silas' decision. He has his free will. It's hard. It's going to be hard if he comes, and decides to
do something that's opposed
to
what you believe in.
Introduce him to. But at the end of the day, he's going to be an adult one day. Yeah. And he's going to decide what he wants to do. God has put everything into place, and he knows what, is happening according to the days. So, God has given you wisdom. And like I said earlier, every day for us now, it's just like a new day to learn how to deal with life, gun violence, pandemic, TV, cartoons, social media. Every day that's just, we getting punches from left and right. And you just got to stand up and just like take those punches for your kids.
I'm trying to like think of ways that, to sort of like cap off the conversation, think of ways that we can prepare ourselves as parents, as fathers, in our household, as the head of the household. What are ways that we can sort of, prepare ourselves just in every aspect, that is spiritually, that is physically, that is mentally. And I'd like to ask you that question quickly. Like, what are some things that you think we can
works
do?
for me? What works for me is just like, surrounding yourself with a support system, having that a team of people, team of friends,
Love that.
a
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
You need to have that nucleus of family.
Yeah.
Back to what Fast and the Furious is
Oh,
all about.
Lord Jesus.
It's all about family.
I haven't watched the last 4 parts, but go ahead.
Fast and the Furious 20. Nah, man, but it's all about family. It's all about, I think the first institution that God introduced was the family, man. So it's just like, he saw the man all by himself. It's like, nah, man, you need someone.
You need
to
a
be
support
with you.
group. You need a support.
Something. Have a wife and build a family. Bro, that's beautiful. Having friendships, having those around you. And I think that's how you prepare yourself. Having God first, searching for that wisdom, educating yourself.
Love that. Yeah.
You have to always be on what's going on the alert. You have to be probably searching what is new, what is trending. You can't be the dad that doesn't know what's going on. You're going to have to know what the cartoon of the day it is.
Yeah.
You got to play with your kid the cartoons that and the games that he's playing. So it's just always just being up to date. Just taking your child like a job, literally. I love that. And again, having that support system around you, with God as your top CEO, manager of your company, which is your family.
I love that, man. Thank you so much for taking the time. Again, you are someone that, I've known you for over a decade. I've known you since your son was born.
Yeah.
And I look at you, and with all jokes aside, I do look at you as someone to look at as an example of a father.
I appreciate
and again,
that.
these are conversations that I've had with my wife when we've talked about the importance of being a father, and you have always come up as someone that has always been a prime example of that, and someone that I aspire to be as a father. So, we argue a lot and we fight a lot, but
so look,
I gotta give you those props, brother. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, bro.
Appreciate it.
And again, congrats on being a father. I hope now you actually become
I think it's been time already. I've become a man, a real man.
I hope you mature now and stop being a child. But I wish you well on your. How many kids you gonna have? Like 3, 4?
That is totally up to my wife.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna argue with that.
All right. But good luck on being a father. I know you're gonna be a great father, and you're a loving father. So again,
Appreciate
thank you for having
brother.
me, and this was great.
Awesome.